This is a Pay-On Media production.
The following podcast on the Your Own Pay Podcast Network will contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised. More information about this episode can be found at yourownpay.com. Enjoy the show.
It's Damashe and Michael, just talking tech.
That was my Discord experiment. Those who didn't know, I'm experimenting with stages in Discord to stream audio all over the place. And I think we'll get there because we got halfway there. So we'll experiment with it. I want to avoid having to use a different sound card, but if I have to, I will bring in another sound card to bring audio in. And that might be what I need, or an audio interface.
Yeah, good work. Or you could use my hack and just grab a patch cable.
Yeah. Patch cable, send you to group one. And then, but the problem with that is I don't know if that's why I said maybe another sound card, and I might pick up a, not sponsored by, AT Guy's sound card and plug that in, because I'm not sure if I can set if line in will work on this computer, or if it will naturally, if I set the input to the onboard microphone, it'll naturally use that microphone, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, because not all line in is a dwindling feature of computers.
It is. But I'll do some poker. And then lastly, I'm going to pick Doug's brain, because what I want to do is probably doable with VAC.
I can imagine so.
Yeah. So what I want to eventually do, and if you're interested, go show some support at yourownpay.com/support, is do live streaming of Damashe and my recording. And actually, Damashe, now that I'm thinking all of this through, I know how we could do it. I invite you to speak on the stage, and only you and me speak on the stage, and then we both mute our Discord channels and record in clean feed.
That could work.
So
I thought you were going to say what I was thinking, which is, well, I could just route all of this stuff on my end and make it work.
Well, there's that too. So if you guys want us to record live and someone's actually listening to this podcast and you're like, hey, that would be cool, tweet one of us and say, yes, I'd love to catch you guys live, and we'll work harder at making this happen, because we've thrown the idea around a little bit, just never pushed the buttons to try to make it happen. And it's weird, I'm one less kid, but I have another kid. Those who have listened to the podcast forever, Evan is with us at this time, and Nicholas went home as of today. So it's like it equals out, and now I can just say I permanently have 3 kids. Although Andrew working all the time, it's like I have 2.5 kids, because he just comes home and sleeps, and every once in a while eats. He's working in a restaurant, so he's having restaurant food.
Oh, yeah, so he's not having to eat at home that often. Yeah. But that's what happens when you get your first job. I remember my first job that I worked over the summer, started out sort of like his situation. I was supposed to be part-time stocking at the grocery store, and I would end up with checks bigger than my manager sometimes. Yeah. Because I worked so much.
Part-time lasted a whole half a day, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I was taking all the time they would give me because, I wanted that money. And it worked.
Yeah. Now, he goes and picks up football equipment tomorrow, which I need to let him know that so he can tell his boss that he needs to go pick up his football equipment. So I don't know what's going to happen when football comes. I don't know what he's going to end up doing. He's probably going to still work, honestly. I think he's got the working bug, and I think he could easily say no, but he doesn't. He would prefer to work, and there's no problem with that, but I'm concerned that hopefully his schoolwork doesn't take a negative impact on it. I don't think it will, but
yeah. We'll see. I mean, probably not, but we'll see. Also, so where you live, is it, I know it's, well, I don't know that it's small. I kind of get the sense that it's
small.
Smaller. So is there just one high school there, or is there more than one high school?
Yeah, there's just one.
So in this particular instance, and this is one of the beauties, if for people who've never lived in like an actual small town, they probably take their football pretty seriously, which means, wow. Did you hear that?
That boom?
Yeah.
Was that thunder?
It is thunder.
So if this episode randomly gets cut off, I'll leave that thunder in the recording.
Yeah. But I was going to say, for those of you who have never lived in a small town that does take their football pretty seriously, especially when you're still in high school and you play football, employers that employ you tend to be a lot more flexible around football schedules.
Yep, they sure do. And employers often are sponsors of the football team or the live broadcast of the football team. So it's to their benefit that their employees do well while playing football. It's all about the small town.
Yep.
So
that's why my ultimate dream I'm going to share with everybody is that I want to buy enough land to have my own little small town.
Yeah. So you can play football?
Oh, no. No, just so I can have that small town feel of like I know everybody that lives here and everybody that lives here knows me, because if I own it, then, obviously you can't move there if I don't allow you. I mean, I don't have to own it all by myself. I would love for other people to throw in for us to get, several thousands of acres of land. Right. But, we'll see what happens. Probably won't be I don't know. By the time financially, I think we should be ready to do something like that. The government may be at a point that they'll sell off some of this forestry land that they are sitting on.
Yeah, because they got to make money back somehow.
So, man, I have got to start time tracking again. I have not been doing it. I think we discussed this a while back, maybe a couple of months ago. That is a side effect of our new kind of recording and publishing schedule too, is that it used to be, I would say, like, oh, we discussed this and it literally will probably be 3 or 4 months ago, whereas this conversation probably happened sometime during this summer, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I got to start back time tracking because one, I need to know where I'm spending my time. Like, I seriously need to know where I'm spending my time at on a couple of projects, so I can either try to cut that level of work. I mean, cut the amount of time it takes me to do things, become more efficient at it, or, raise prices or something. Because
you're spending more time on projects than what you had initially thought.
So it's not so much that I'm spending more time than I initially thought. What prompted this is a project that me and you were discussing, over the past couple of days, because you've been helping me out with the AWeber stuff, just kind of on guidance and stuff like that. Once I finished up doing everything I had to do, I was like, I wonder how long that actually took. And I couldn't, I know I cannot anywhere near accurately estimate, right? Because as most people are, like, I can say, oh, well, that probably took me about an hour and it might have taken 3 hours. Like, I literally don't know. And I don't like not knowing how much time I spent on that particular project, because in future, if I continue doing this or I pick up another gig doing this, like, I need to know how to price that based off how long it takes me. And also I need to be aware of, am I actually getting better at doing this? Because it was the first time I did a lot of the things that I did inside of AWeber, or am I just basically at a base level and this is as fast as I'm going to get, which means I need to look at either not picking up such projects or outsourcing them to someone who is better at them than I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's when you're aware of where you're spending your time, it can make a huge impact on both sending that invoice at the end of the month, so you know how much time you're spending on project, and accepting or rejecting projects. And lastly, before we move on, I do got to tell you, your timing is impeccable. We talked about time tracking on July 20th in DM74.
Aha.
And links will be in that.
You can get links to that at yourownpay.com/DM76.
It's going to be another one of those episodes, huh?
Man. If I still did the custom ringtone thing, I would totally yank that clip out of the episode where you kept I can't even remember. Even to this day, I don't remember what you were trying to say, but you had to try to say it like 3 times. You did drop it in at the beginning of the episode as the opener. I would totally make that your ringtone if I still did a ringtone.
Yeah, I know. It would be entertaining.
Yeah, for all of 5 minutes, and then maybe like the 4th time you called me in the same day, I'm like, man, you know what? I gotta turn this shit off. So, what else is going on, Michael?
Not a whole bunch is going on. For those who are involved, I'll put links to this over at the show notes, though. I am working on reimaging this radio. That's my biggest tech project, is flashing the updated firmware to this radio. Apparently there's some new features, and the team has been working on getting that. This might be a reason for me to learn C. I don't know about that. That's a high commitment. So the firmware is in C, recorded in C, or not recorded, but programmed in C. And it makes these $70 to $90 radios fully accessible. Like, everything reads and you can go in and program stuff. And now they have what's called auto zones. And it's not the car place, as I was telling someone on the radio today, that will allow you to, my understanding, and I haven't poked it yet, so my understanding could be wrong, but it sounds like it will allow you to pick a automatic set of frequencies in your local area, such as marine frequencies, and be able to just have those automatically added to your radio so you can listen to them. You wouldn't be able to transmit, but you can monitor them, which means that this would make a completely accessible scanner as well for someone who didn't necessarily have their ham radio license. As long as you weren't transmitting, you could use this to scan different frequencies in your local area and listen to things going on and know what you were listening to in most cases. That's my understanding of it. Sounds too good to be true, but there's that. And then I've been poking at my calendar. We talked about that last time, and I am posting ads on RS Games, and I'm going to ask Damashe what's new for him here in a second as I get RS Games pulled up so I can share some numbers with Damashe about that. So, Damashe, what's new with you?
So, since we last recorded, I have acquired 2 Raspberry Pis. Wait a minute. Did I talk about that last time? I don't even remember. Nope, I haven't got them yet. Because
you didn't even order them last time we talked, because you ordered them like last Friday, didn't you?
2 weeks ago. So it's probably right after the episode, like the week that the episode publishes, probably when I actually ordered them. So yeah, I have acquired 2 Raspberry Pis. I have a Raspberry Pi 4B with 4 gigs of RAM, and a Raspberry Pi 3B actually. So getting into that a little bit, I did go and install Pi-hole on the Raspberry Pi 3. Been playing around with that, tinkering with that a bit. It's just nice. It does solve a couple of issues that I wanted to solve as far as internal LAN routing, and it has a side effect of like wiping ass off of, websites. So I don't get those in the way. Pretty nice. Actually really simple to set up. And as I mentioned to Michael, after setting up the Pi OS that I use, I forget what I used. I did not use Raspbian. I used something. I will find it and give Michael a link in the show notes. But after setting it up, I called Michael and I said, this is going to sound really dumb. And I think intellectually I knew this, but I actually had to sit down with a Raspberry Pi and go configure it, like outside of the step of imaging using Etcher, which I used to put the image of the OS onto the micro SD card before putting it in the Pi. Once I booted up the Pi, like I called Mike, I was like, man, it's just like doing stuff on Linode.
Except it's local. And
except it's right here. Like, what I could do this.
When you mess it up, you can pull the plug and grab the SD card and reimage it, and you don't even have to go through DigitalOcean's cloud control panel or Linode. Yeah. So, are you doing anything with the 4?
Not as of yet. I'm kind of researching a couple of different things. I think actually what I'm going to do with the Pi 4 first is just install the Ubuntu version Ubuntu LTS 20.04 on there, and just play around with building out different things. I probably will throw Nginx on there, try running some local web services, just to get comfortable. I do have a couple of books that now they will be extremely useful, so I'll probably start reading through those and getting ideas of things to build, for sure. And been thinking about and investigating. So one thing I do most certainly intend on investigating is Homebridge, and checking that out. There's a platform, may not be the right word. There's an interface to Homebridge called Hoobs, and Hoobs is just built on top of the Homebridge software. And Homebridge, for anybody not familiar, is a package that was created by a very enterprising person to allow you to integrate non-HomeKit compatible smart home devices into HomeKit so that you can control them from the Home app. So things like Smart Things, and I believe there's even ways to bring Google devices or Nest devices in and be able to control those through the Home app. And it works by using plugins. Who's is just an interface, gives you a nice web interface for managing all of that. I do now know that Homebridge does have its own web interface, but that's more recent. The Hoobs project was created before Homebridge created their web interface. And from looking at Hoobs and researching Hoobs, like, it's fairly straightforward to set up and use and add devices. So definitely interested in playing around with that. And of course, my long-term, or one of my projects that I have to work on also, is building a home NAS, because Synology is just not the way I want to
go. Too rich for my blood. I'll admit it. Yeah.
Little too rich for mine, man. Like, seriously, like I can definitely make that work in different ways. Also have a Windows computer that most likely, it's an old desktop. I'm most likely just going to stick a SSD in it and just put Linux on it. Even though a friend of the show, Doug, was nice enough to help me out with getting a version of Windows to put on it to replace what I think may be a screwed up version of the installation. But probably just going to go with Linux on that, set it up as a Plex server.
February 16th, we talked about Raspberry Pis on DM76, called Robotic Pi Ham, and I am not impressed, because what we talked about on that episode has happened. Both of us have ended up with more than just one Raspberry Pi. And I have a feeling that we're both going to end up with maybe one more, I think, probably. I don't know about you, but I want to pick up a 3, because I have this Pi Zero that I bought from Doug. Thanks, Doug. And I have this Raspberry Pi 4B that I need to figure out what I want to do with that Raspberry Pi. But there's a all-star project that I've talked a little bit about that I want to get involved in. And that's going to take a Raspberry Pi 3, because it's the 4B that I have is overkill for what I need to do with that. I might poke at Asterisk or Incredible PBX with this 4B and see what I can do with it. I eventually want to get, and I told Damashe this, and I'm not sure if it'll happen or if I'm going to actually feel that ambitious, but eventually I want to get an invoicing software internal running on it. And then I asked myself, Michael, is it worth it? Because we already got one that is working. Like, it hasn't slowed down as I'm loading it right now to make sure that it's still working and everything. But like, we've got a perfectly good setup. It's still up and snappy too. Perfectly good setup. So maybe I won't use that for one of the Raspberry Pis. So that's my thoughts. I also might do kind of like what you were talking about doing, and grab a Ubuntu and install it just to poke around and improve my Linux skills on something that I can break that isn't mission critical.
Yep. Definitely. So I'm most certainly going to end up with more of these, at least one more, probably more than that, because another more long-term project at this point. So I'm not even investigating or anything like that. But I have been interested in a while in the home security systems, smart home security systems. Yeah. And the reason I haven't really investigated any of the ones that are on the market is because, well, I got a little bit of Somebody said something somewhere and I was like, all the things are out there for me to build my own.
Right.
So I will just more likely do that because then I get exactly what I want out of it versus paying for something where it cost me $250 to get the starter kit for this thing, but it only got one door sensor and one window sensor. Well, I need more than just that. So by the time plus monthly
monitoring.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And shortly after that, I think what actually put me down this path was the Raspberry Pi Foundation put out a Raspberry Pi camera that can be used for a security camera. So make your own smart doorbell or your own, camera, stick up cam like the Ring cameras. I was like, well, that makes a lot more sense. And I don't have to do the extra work of trying to research a company and find out, hey, will you allow me to store stuff locally versus streaming it to your cloud or whatever? So that is a long-term project for sure. And I think one of my kids is probably going to have me into, some sort of robot stuff at some point. My son is always trying to build robots. So as soon as he gets a little bit bigger, and a little bit more cautious than he is today, we'll probably be trying to build something that, may not be off of Raspberry Pi, maybe one of those other boards like Arduino or something like that. But I'm liking it, having fun. Definitely going to build out Ubuntu and just play with it, see if I can run WordPress. I do want the Pi that you have, though.
You want the
4B
what?
that you have. So I do want the Pi that you have, though, the 4B with the 8 gigs of RAM. But it is possible I will acquire a 2012 Mac Pro.
You still working on that?
Yeah, I just need to go ship. I just need to send the guy a shipping label, which I'll do at some point.
Orange Mail.
Yeah, probably going to use them.
Yeah. Don't you have a few other things to ship?
I do have other stuff to ship. So I do need to go set up this Orange Miller account. But yeah, I get the Mac Pro, and what I'm thinking about with that, there are still ways to kind of keep that upgraded. I probably won't mess around with, at least not initially, trying to upgrade its processor, but I can definitely put in SSDs. Basically all the hard drives I have laying around that are terabyte or better, I can just shove in there. And that is what I want to ultimately be my Plex server, but I'm going to play around with Plex on the Pi just a bit, just to see how it runs. And because of some nice configuration options with Pi, so for example, and Michael reminded me of this a couple of days ago, but let's say I put together a system on the Raspberry Pi and I need to have it automatically connect to my Wi-Fi. I can drop a config file on the root of the card. When I boot it up for the first time, it will grab that information. That brings us back the possibility of, not necessarily a business, but like a little side hustle sort of deal of building out something like, say, a, home NAS system or a Plex server or something like that for an individual, and charging them for the Pi and the stuff that goes with the Pi, and a little bit for labor, and just shipping that off, getting the information that they need to auto connect to their network, and when they get it, they plug it in, and now you have a NAS system that you don't have to really touch or screw with all that much. Like, it's already set up versus doing it yourself when a lot of people don't have that necessary drive to do that.
These cameras are $50. I didn't realize they were that cheap.
Yep.
Man, why? Why do you got to do this to me? Maybe I just found a use for this 4B.
Man, you can make one hell of a security system, man.
I sure can, Evan. Hope you're listening. Oh, yeah, that's exciting though. Especially if you can turn that into maybe not a full-time business, but something that you could experiment with. Another thing to add to the mix, and I'm not sure how much you want to get into it, but you could theoretically buy, get a system in place to buy Raspberry Pis. This is going to take a little bit more investment because I hear you can get them for between $150 to $400. Pick up a 3D printer and 3D print custom cases that fit the Raspberry Pi and any storage solutions too.
That was an idea. I've been wanting a 3D printer though.
Yeah.
Because I got small kids.
there's a blind gentleman on Laz's list that does 3D printing, and I'm intrigued to see some of his work, because I have not played with anything 3D printed that I'm aware of, which is saying a lot about the technology, because I promise I probably have played with something that was 3D printed and I didn't even know it. Phone cases come to mind.
Yeah, phone cases, probably. There's probably things I've touched that have been 3D printed too.
I'll link to it at yourownpay.com/DM76. But the TPU snap-on case that AT Guys sells for Orbit Riders are 3D printed. And so I've thought about just having one of those shipped over to me and checking it out. But yeah, 3D printing has come a long ways than where it was in the past.
Yeah, man. I did not know they had gotten that cheap.
JJ did a podcast episode. It'll be at the show notes with a maker foundation. And that's not the name of it, but they were talking about getting accessible tools to be able to 3D print something, because you have to have different like dimensions and information about the product itself. So being able to 3D print something is good until you need to make modifications to it to fit what you need. And there are some solutions out there that are available, and I'll link to that podcast. Might be worth you listening to.
Absolutely.
So that's what's new. I had some follow-up from last week, but I don't remember or 2 weeks ago, but I don't remember what it was. So it must not have been very good follow-up. And one of these days, Taylor brought up a good point for an idea thing for me. She was going to use it to get ideas for content that people could publish, and she was going to use a Gravity form and have it drop it into an Excel or a Google Sheet spreadsheet, and that way she can add dates of either when she's going to go live with the content or when she has published it, and then put URLs to the content as well to keep track of it, especially when creating content. Great idea. Some of that came from me. A lot of that came from her, but I was just thinking I should set up a private Gravity form or even just a Google form, something to go put in when I get random ideas at 2:00 in the morning that say, hey, we should do follow up on this. Although if I didn't use the Todoist shortcut too much, am I really going to go fill out a form? Todoist, man. What are you doing with Todoist?
Not a thing.
So I went into Todoist the other day. I had 26 uncompleted tasks, because if you let a reoccurring task go past due, it'll count that as an incompleted task. But thankfully, it doesn't count every one that you missed incompleted. So I went in there and I completed a couple of tasks. I think I completed like 18 of them, because I'm like, yeah, I did all these. And then I haven't been back in there. So I need to poke at that a little more. And
yeah, I'm not quite certain what the friction is for me with Todoist at the moment, or with to-do apps in general, but there's something there that I just haven't figured out yet, because there was a point in time where like I kept everything in Todoist. Yep. I was checking things off and setting it up right and all that, and it's like now it's like I don't know what it is, but I'm just kind of letting it cook itself out, I guess.
So what have you thought about doing with Todoist?
The thoughts I have right now is like I need to go through, export all of my data so that I can at least have a backup of it, and just delete everything and start over from scratch.
Yeah. Yep, that's about all we got to say about Todoist this time, because that's how it's been. I need to get back into it and get some shit accomplished in it. So I was going to look up RS game numbers, so we're looping back up there. Threw an RS games ad up on the 8th of August. So 6 days ago. My math right. 6 days ago. It's been broadcasted a total of 3,404 times, and 12 times it's been requested to be sent to someone's email, which doesn't sound like a lot, but my ad copy is substantially longer than it probably needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably go in and edit this ad copy and see if those numbers go up. And this is as of recording at 8:44 Pacific time on the 14th. And I'm probably going to advertise DM76 using the same ad and see if those numbers go up at all, and experiment with that a little bit. And yeah, so I just wanted to go back to those numbers because I mentioned that. So,
man, so in the news, we normally don't do in the news stuff, but this is a topic that I at least want to talk about just a bit. Apple recently made an announcement that they're adding some new child protection features into iOS 15. I should be on the beta tomorrow also, by the way.
Ooh.
But they're adding some new child protection features in iOS 15. There are 3 things that they announced. I'm going to say up front that I think they should have handled this a little differently and not announced all of those things together. Because I think that has contributed to the overall confusion that some people are experiencing and trying to understand what it is Apple is and is not doing, and the capabilities Apple has and does not have. I want to touch on just 2 of the 3 things, because the third thing is really just them filtering searches and trying to steer you away from negative parts of the internet, which is, whatever. Like there's always ways. I don't use Siri to search for stuff anyway.
Right.
But it's pretty straightforward. And we will link in the show notes at yourownpay.com/DM76 to Apple's explanation of what these features are. Also on that page are FAQs and several links to different white papers that get into more technical detail about how they're doing what they're doing. But there are 2 things that they're doing that I think people are conflating and mashing together, and also leading to some confusion and angst to where, the internet being the internet, people are like, oh man, they're rage quitting, iCloud photo library or whatever. And that's the one I want to talk about first is the CSAM. Wait, is that how you say it? CSAM?
I think
Child Sexual Abuse Material. Yes, CSAM, CSAM, and that stands for Child Sexual Abuse Material. A long word or long phrase, but to me sounds a whole lot better than kitty porn, because that makes some dirty shit sound slightly cutesy. So the first thing, and the thing that got people rage quitting iCloud photo library and not understanding what Apple is doing and all of that, is their CSAM scanning of your images. There's a lot of technical details about this that I'm not really going to get into. I understand some of it. Some of it is like how they accomplished it. I understand how it works is well over my head. There's some very cool encryption stuff that's going on there. But ultimately what it comes down to is that Apple will, starting at some point in iOS 15, because this may not be a feature that's implemented day one, but eventually in iOS 15, Apple will scan any photos that are uploaded from an iOS device to iCloud photo library. So if you're using iCloud photos in the cloud, like if you just have your app and you're not syncing your photos up to the cloud, and this does not apply to you at all. But if you are using iCloud photo library, they will scan each image as it goes up. Now, what they're actually doing is they're running the image through a hashing algorithm. Short explanation is not a full explanation or technical specification of how it works, but think of a hash this way. You get an egg, you crack the egg open, you still have the egg, the yolk, and all of that. You whip the egg, like you're going to make scrambled eggs or something. Now it's just a, big mess of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, with the egg example, which is sort of a bad example, you cannot put that egg back together again. With a hash, well, you can't reverse that either. So I guess it is an apt explanation. However, I could, with hashing, you run a text or image or whatever it is you want to hash through this hashing algorithm, and it comes out with a set character string on the other end. You cannot reverse this hash to figure out what it is. What you can do is compare another string of text or another image to see if you get the exact same hash. If you got the exact same hash, and you know it matches.
Right.
This is how password hashing works, right? So on WordPress, for example, on Michael's WordPress site, when he logs in, his password is not in plain text. It is hashed. So that even should someone manage to break into Michael's database, they will not be able to actually recover his password by just yanking it out of the database. What they could do, if Michael was using the password 123, he is not, but if he was, someone would run, they would look at all the typical passwords people use. Password 123 is probably one of those. They would run that through their hashing algorithm because they could see what type of hash he was using, and then say, oh, well, password 123 got me the same string that I got out of Michael's user data, so that means he is using password 123. Mm-hmm. That's how hashing works. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different with image hashing because the way that they're doing it is they're not simply comparing all of the bytes of the image. So this works even if the original image has been scaled up, scaled down, rotated, converted from one format to another, such as converted from a JPEG to a GIF or a PNG or whatever, right? But what Apple is doing is they're taking your photo before it goes up to iCloud, so still on your device. They're running it through this hashing algorithm that is being used to match image hashes. And then they are checking the hash of your image against a locally stored database that is going to be on your device of material from the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children. And I'm glad I got that out right the first time. I may not do it again. The National Center for Exploited and Missing Children. Missing and Exploited Children. I'm sorry. NCMEC is the acronym, but National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is the United States entity that fights child abuse, sexual exploitation, tries to help people, locate, recover missing kids, and they interface a lot with law enforcement. So, as law enforcement, let's say they break up a child sexual abuse ring and they have all these images and videos and all of that data is eventually given to the NCMEC. They are the only entity in the United States allowed to have the actual images and videos of child sexual abuse. No other government agency, local law enforcement, etc., are legally able to hold that material. It is illegal to hold that material in the United States unless you are the NCMEC. There are other similar agencies in different countries. I don't know their names, but they do exist in other countries as well. So our NCMEC, and then with the other agencies from around the world that are also doing the same similar type of good works to try to save children out of bad situations, they have these images. They run their database of images, all go through this hashing algorithm, and then they disseminate the hashes to cloud providers and other companies, law enforcement, etc. So Apple has that database of the hashed images. That Apple does not have the actual images. Right. They just have the list of hashes, right? They're putting them on your device, and you will have that database, and that database can only be updated during an iOS update. So your image that you take a picture and you're uploading photos to iCloud Photo Library, before it leaves your device, first it gets hashed, and then they're going to compare the hash of each image that they hashed off your device against the database of hashes that are also on your device. If there's a match for any of those hashes, they're going to put a little encrypted tag on it that says this image matched image, blah, blah, blah in the database. And then they'll continue with the upload to iCloud. There is again, all this is happening on your device. Once the image is uploaded to iCloud, it's just there, right? So let's say I'm not gonna say this wouldn't happen because, errors do happen, but there would be no child sexual abuse material on my device. But let's say I upload an image, it goes through the hashing process on device and it matches one of the hashes from the database from the NCMEC. Well, they're still going to upload that photo to iCloud Photo Library, and it'll be there, and I can download it on other devices and all of that, share it, do all those things. It will, because it matched its hash, get a little encrypted sort of meta information that'll be encrypted that says, hey, this is a match for an image out of the NCMEC database. There's a threshold so Apple won't know that image matched. Nobody will know that image matched until you reach a threshold of a specific number of images. Recently,
so we don't know, I don't think, do we?
No. So Craig Federighi actually has said that it's 30. So if you have up until the point that you hit that threshold, though, because that threshold could also move.
Yep.
But up until you reach the threshold, Apple is not even aware that you have matching images in iCloud that match anything out of the NCMEC data. Once that threshold is, and Apple can't just randomly decide, oh, we're going to go search through Damashe Thomas's account and see if he has any matches, because they can't decrypt any of the data that is attached to that image until this threshold is reached. And that's where the clever encryption part comes in. Because Apple literally cannot. It's not they will not. It's they cannot. The way that they have built the encryption for this is that they never get the full key to decrypt the data to determine what the matches were in the database until the threshold is reached. Right. They get little dribbles and bits, but they don't get the entire key until that threshold is reached, which is a very nice system that I would like to deploy myself for other reasons. We'll talk about that later, though. But so I could have 10 images. If the threshold really is 30 and it remains at 30, well, I have 10 images. Apple will never know I have those 10 images in my iCloud photo library. Nobody will ever know I have those 10 images except for me. Once the threshold is reached, however, Apple does receive the ability to decrypt that, because they will now get the key handed to them for decryption. Once they see that key and they decrypt it, they're going to pass that on to a human. A human has to review to make sure that there is an actual match. Like this image matches that image. There's been no mistake. There's not a couple of bits that got twisted up. These images actually match, and this person does have X number of these images. My understanding, unless something new has come out since I last heard, once they verify that there were no mistakes made, these images are not sent to your local law enforcement. They're going to suspend your account is what they're going to do. And then they're going to pass the information about your possession of these images to the NCMEC. The NCMEC is going to be the organization that is going to interface with law enforcement to come see about you and what the hell you're up to. That is basically how it works. Like I said, there's a lot more technical detail in how things are done, but that is the basic gist of it. They're going to hash all your images, check them against the local database on your phone, and if there's a match, they will encrypt a piece of metadata, just like the location of your photo is stored as metadata. This fact that you have a match to a hash in the database is going to also be stored as metadata, but it's encrypted, so Apple can't just go combing through your account for any reason and discover that you have any of these images until the threshold is reached. That's when Apple obtains thinking about it like a game. Right? It's not really a game because this is very serious business, but think about it like a game. You have to achieve certain levels before you unlock the magic wand or the magic key that allows you to open all doors in the castle, right? Well, your phone, your device has to upload and have reached or exceeded the threshold of matching hashes before Apple is going to have the ability to unlock your photos and actually start looking at them.
And I'm sorry, if your phone exceeds that threshold, honestly, this is my opinion, I don't care if Apple goes through your shit, because apparently something's wrong there. And I think only people who have a problem, once they understand how it works, and I do understand that there's the confusion of not understanding how it works, only those who have a reason to be concerned are concerned with this. Again, once people understand it, because there was a lot of information that came out all at once that I think overwhelmed people during this last week. I think it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the fact that they announced, again, the other two measures that they're taking to try to protect children, and also the fact that, in order to understand it, you have to go through I really was trying to be as quick and brief with the explanation of how it worked as I possibly could, but I couldn't get it any shorter than what I just did, because you have to understand how that, at least the basic gist of how the hashing works and understand the fact that all of this happens on your device before it goes to iCloud. Now, the other flip side of this, everybody's already doing this. Apple is actually probably the last or one of the last companies to come up with the means of scanning for CSAM material and images. Everywhere else on the internet that you upload and store photos is already doing this, but they're just doing it server side. They're not doing it locally. They're not trying to protect your privacy. They don't give a shit about your privacy. They're scanning the images server side. So if it's there, they can try to take action to do something about it. Suspend your account, shut you down, go to the, I'm assuming they would also follow the same measures by going to the NCMEC and letting that organization interface with the police. But I don't know that. I do know that everybody's doing it. Facebook is doing it. Google is doing it. Dropbox is doing it. Flickr, if they're still around, is probably doing it. But I know for a fact that Facebook and Google are doing it. I know that Microsoft is doing it. I know that Dropbox is doing it because I have seen, pronouncements of them doing it. Facebook says they found 20 million images last year. That's a lot of images that matched stuff that was stored in the NCMEC database. The only difference in what they're doing and what Apple is doing, and keep in mind, people, like I said, it is illegal to possess these images. This is not, you're a 20-year-old, you're a teenager, you're 30, 40, 50, however old, and you go to Pornhub and you watch grown adult consenting people in pornography. You're not storing pictures that someone took of a grown adult consenting person that chose to do this. We're talking about images of children doing the same type of shit or being forced to do the same type of shit that you see on Pornhub or any of the other porn sites. I'm not picking on Pornhub, right? This is where it is illegal to possess those images.
And it should be.
That is, it absolutely it should be. I mean, it should be a murderable offense, but that's a whole conversation.
Yes.
It is illegal to possess these images. Hence the reason Apple does not actually have the images. They just have the hash of the images. Facebook only gets the hashes of the images. They don't get the images unless they find them in your account. The only difference in what Apple is doing and what everybody else is doing is Apple is trying to stick to their line of being privacy focused, and they're doing everything on your device versus doing it in the cloud, which exposes all of your images to be rummaged through.
Right.
And they're putting protections in place to prevent your images just from being rummaged through because, for whatever reason, somebody decides, let me see if this person has any of this crap in their account. Right. Also, again, if you do not use iCloud Photo Library, none of this happens. If you are currently using iCloud Photo Library, and I don't think that they're retroactively scanning stuff on the cloud because they can't, but as images go down and come back up and all of that, it will go through this process once it's initiated. But right now, because this feature is not active, if you are using iCloud Photo Library and you choose to disable that feature in your account, well, then none of this happens to you.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing. I understand some of the concern because, yes, here's some possibilities I've heard people throw out that, okay, they're valid concerns. Well, what if, and I'm going to pick on, I'm going to pick on the U.S. I'm going to stop picking on China so much. I'm going to pick on the U.S. Let's say the United States government. And we've had, recently someone that probably would have attempted to do something like this. And I'm not saying we don't have people still in place right now in the federal government that would attempt this. But let's say the federal government decides, well, hey, we want to add these images to your database so that if we get matches for, this symbol or people performing this action or that picture or whatever, it'll help us find dissidents or people who are trying to take down the government or people who are homegrown terrorists or whatever the case may be. Right. Well, yes, Apple does have the ability to do that. Apple has come out and said, we are not going to add any additional images whatsoever to this database on the behest of any government. The only images that will be stored on your device will come from the NCMEC, and they probably listed them. I don't remember, but any other organizations in other countries that perform similar work as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children does in the United States. This is the only place we're taking images from or taking the hashes of images from. These are the only things we're going to be checking against. We will not, do anything, insert anything on the behalf of a government request. That's what they have said. I get that absolutely 100%. They could go back on that. They could be forced into doing it because, well, Chinese law says you have to do this, or they get issued with one of those secret, it's not an indictment. I forget exactly what it's called now. One of those national security letters, though, where they're like, hey, you have to do this thing and you also can't tell people that we made you do it. Right? They could get hit with one of those and choose to comply with such a thing, and there's no way we would know. But I've said this in prior episodes a few times, sometimes funnily, sometimes not so funnily. Just kind of depends on what type of mood I happen to be in. Apple holds the keys to iOS, period. They can do whatever the fuck they want to do, and there's no way we would know anything about it unless somebody from inside of Apple chose to snitch it out. Apple could be a front for the NSA. All of the privacy and encryption and security that Apple claims to provide and that we think they provide could easily be subjugated simply by them inserting, giving the keys to iOS to the NSA, so that the NSA could sign and decrypt and do all of that stuff. They could have done that years ago. We would not know. Same thing with iMessage. I pointed this out about iMessage before. Apple holds the keys to iMessage so that us, the users of iMessages, don't have to manage our own keys and, make sure that, I don't have to make sure Michael has my new public key when I get a new phone, or I reset my phone, which I'm about to do. So Apple is holding those keys. Hence the reason you sign in with your Apple ID and there are all your messages and people can start texting you and iMessaging you again and everything still works because Apple holds the keys. Apple could very easily insert themselves or anyone else they chose to into an iMessage conversation and you not know that that person is a part of the conversation if they chose to do so. There's nothing we can do about that. I choose to believe that Apple, it does have what they say at the core of their business. They are trying to make sure that we, the users, the purchasers of their devices, are protected. We have privacy options to protect us. You look at all the other things Apple does, and there's a lot of the technical shit they did just to get the hashing stuff to work and the image comparison against the hashes to work was completely unnecessary. They could have just uploaded your stuff to the cloud and checked all your images against a hash on their servers. Pretty sure would have got done a hell of a lot faster if they did it on their servers versus doing it on your iPhone 7 that you're still holding on to. Yeah, I'm talking to you. But they didn't. They did a lot of extra work. I mean, they did a ton of extra work. Like, just to take a sidestep just a minute into that encryption technique that they're using where they don't get the key until a threshold is reached. Like, I heard about that. I was like, man, that's what I need to do because I have been trying to figure out what to do about my digital legacy. I don't necessarily want to hand over my GPG private key to somebody and say, hey, if something happens to me, follow these steps and this will decrypt the file that will give you the information to get into, 1Password and get into these accounts. And these are the people you should reach out to for help with this because you probably won't know how to do it. I don't really want to do that slightly because I'm a little paranoid and I have a lightweight, I have a tinfoil visor, to be honest about it. But also, look, mistakes happen. If I lose my private key, that's my fault. If I've given it to someone else for that emergency case and they make a mistake and lose it, well, now I have all sorts of problems I got to clean up that I was not the cause of, other than the fact that I gave them the key in the first place. This idea right here that Apple has come up with is like, oh, you can dribble the key out. So like, look, if these thresholds are met, like if I don't do these things that I normally do on a daily basis for more than 6 weeks, send this person this. And if this happens or this doesn't happen to stop it, then send them this. And, maybe after about a month after that 6-week threshold starts, then they have the entire key to go decrypt everything. Right. I would love to do that. I would love to set everybody else up to do that because then you don't have to worry about, oh man, well, gee, she was on this random Wi-Fi network. She don't know what the hell they was doing. And she wasn't using a VPN. They might have my shit. Oh, damn it. But so that is something that is very but that is it took them a lot of work to do this. They could have done what Google is doing, and no slaps at Google, no slaps at Facebook or Dropbox for what they're doing because they have to do it right, and they had to do something because eventually it's going to be forced upon them. The way that they've done it at least gets it done in the most protective way that they possibly can. And I agree with Michael. Once you understand, because I'm going to tell you, like, when I first heard about this, the way I heard about it, the way it was explained when I first heard about it, I was slightly annoyed. I was like, go turn off iCloud Photo. Not because I got anything to hide, but man, what the hell does Apple think they're doing?
Yeah.
But it was poorly explained. And I think that's a large part of people's pushback and uproar about this feature is it was poorly explained. There are some details that maybe need to be worked out. Maybe Apple should listen to what some of the more professional security, the encryption seems good. Everybody agrees on that. Maybe they should listen to what other people have to say about maybe the threshold or, whatever. Like, I don't personally have any complaints with this issue. Yes, it opens the door. All it does is shine a light on something that I've known, Michael's known, a lot of us have known for years, which is Apple has the ability to kind of do whatever the hell they want to do because it's their OS. They hold the keys to sign the operating system. If they don't sign the operating system, it doesn't load. They can do anything.
Yep. And speaking of poorly explained things, so am I understanding, Damashe, that Apple can see any of the pictures that are sent to me in iMessages?
Oh, so the iMessage thing. This is funny. This is kind of funny to me. And I'm going to get to, once I explain what's going on, I'm going to get to one of the things that people are annoyed about that I can slightly see their point. But the rest of what I've been hearing about this is just crazy. So what's going on? Apple and iOS 15, again, as a way to try to protect children from abusive material or harmful content. First, there are some guidelines. How should I start this? Okay, let me explain what they're doing first. So, message comes into a minor, and this message contains an image that has been detected to contain pornographic or harmful material. Because I'm pretty sure, I would hope that they go beyond just pornographic material. Like, you send my kid a picture of a chopped up body, I would hope they would blur that out too.
Yeah.
But the image comes in, it's detected as being something harmful for a child, and the image is blurred, and the child will get a notification, a message inside of the Messages app. This doesn't only work. It works in the Messages app, so it applies to iMessages and text messages.
Yep.
Child will get a message that says, "Hey, you don't have to view this image. We think that this image may be something dangerous to you that you should not say." I don't know. I don't remember the exact wording, but it's something along the lines of that. And it's written in such a way that it's trying to communicate to a child that, hey, we think this is dangerous. You shouldn't look at it. Would you like to not look at it? Right. And then you have an option. They could say, look, view the image or don't view the image. If the child chooses to view the image, then the image will be displayed, and they will get a warning saying, hey, this is considered to be something dangerous for you. So we just want to make sure that you're aware of this. If the child is under the age of 13, so 12 and under, then the parent of said child, parent or guardian of said child, will also be notified that the child has viewed a dangerous image and have the opportunity to view said image. Apple will also prevent that image from being deleted. Same rules apply on outgoing messages. So if a child is about to send a message that has been detected as pornographic or harmful or possibly dangerous, something they shouldn't do, they're going to get a similar warning saying, hey, you may not want to send this message because we think that this is bad for you. Would you like to send a message? Yes or no? If they choose yes, again, if the child is under the age of 13, so 12 and under, the parent will get, or parent/guardian will get a notification that, hey, your child sent a message that contained, something that we have detected to be harmful or dangerous or pornographic, whatever the wording actually says. And I believe, again, the same rules apply. They will prevent that image from being deleted so that the parent guardian can view said image. If the child is 13 to 18, I think is the actual age. Yep. Somebody said 17. I'm like, I think you have to be 18 for you're a legal adult. So maybe it is 13 to 17, because once you're 18, you are considered a legal adult.
Yeah, so it'd be 13 to 17.
So between 13 and 17, they will get the same warning. But if they choose to view the image or continue sending said image, the parent/guardian will not be notified. Now, a couple of things on that, but I want to go back and stress a point, because I've said this and people are listening like, well, how does it know? How does Apple know who the guardian or parent is? Well, this only applies, number one, if your said child is inside of iCloud families. So that means a parent or guardian had to have set up iCloud for families, added the child account, and then also turned on this feature because it's not on by default. So these three things have to happen. Number one, the child must be inside of an iCloud family. So it can't be your, as some people are, and I'm not judging, because some kids had their iPads before Apple decided to make a family setup. They have a device and they're just signed in with some random Apple ID, and parent probably lied about the age so they can actually get it to work. Well, it doesn't apply to them because you're not inside of iCloud family. You are inside of iCloud family. You've added your kids, but you don't turn this feature on. So, for example, if I don't turn this feature on for my kids, it won't have an effect on them. It won't exist. It does not happen. It doesn't work. Now, because my kids are in the family and Apple knows their ages, and I do turn this feature on and said any of these things happen, either my child tries to send a picture or someone tries to send one to them containing harmful information, and they continue to do so, I will get a notification and I will be able to go view the image. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. I don't really intend on turning this feature on, number one, because my kids can only message people that I put in their contacts. And they can only receive messages from people that, are in their contacts. So this doesn't even really apply to me at all. I don't care. Right. So, if you have iCloud family set up and you have young children and you are worried about who to communicate with, like, you do have the ability to say only people in their contact list can they call, message, etc., and can they be messaged and called by, right? That's how my kids' iPads are set up. Mostly because, kids are kids and they'll punch in random numbers and then you don't know who they're talking to. They call them China or something. Sorry, I'm not picking on the Chinese. It's just, whatever. They call them some foreign country and I got a ridiculous bill. That's one reason for that. Also, I would like for them to know who they're talking to. I would like to know who they're talking to and not have to sit there and look over their shoulder and figure out what they're doing so they can go play in messages all day long. My son sent me a message yesterday. He sent me two, in fact, while I was working. They were just digital touch. I have no idea what he drew because I didn't even look at them. But I know he can only send those type of messages, even though he's just drawing little pictures with the digital touch thing and sending messages. He can only send them to me, his mother, his grandmothers,
his sister.
I actually think that's it. Oh, yeah, and his sister.
Yep.
Which drives her fucking nuts. Lincoln, stop texting me. But that is the gist of how this feature works. Now, what Apple is doing is they have trained a neural engine that is in your iOS devices and I think this also actually works on the Mac. I have not gotten any verification on whether or not the image uploading matching stuff is on Mac OS or not. But I do believe the messages thing also goes across the Mac. They have trained the neural engine to identify pornographic material, is what I keep hearing. My feeling is that it's also meant to, or at least my hope, I'll say my feeling, I would expect Apple, because I hold Apple to a higher standard than I would just, some other places. So my expectation would be that this is not trained just to detect potentially pornographic material, but also potentially just, non-safe viewing material for a child, period, like a chopped up body or beheaded kid or, any of that type of stuff, right? Anything that displays violence, sexual content, anything like that. I don't know that for a fact. It's just my expectation. What I have constantly heard is trained to detect pornographic material. So there could, of course, be errors. Hence the reason the kids have a way to bypass it. For example, I've used this example with a couple of people I've explained it to. When my daughter was young, did the same thing with my son too. But I remember doing it first with my daughter because she was the first one born. When she took her first bath in life as a baby, she was home from the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. And the first time she actually got in the bathtub, we got pictures of her in a little kitty tub we bought too, little baby tub, but the actual grown-up bathtub, she was in the grown-up bathtub with a duck and some other toys and a boat and a frog, I think. No, it was a turtle. We took pictures, right? Because that's what you do as a parent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a naked kid in the tub. I could try to, if I were a kid, if my daughter actually had this, she does not have this photo in her library of photos. But if she did and she was trying to send it, say, to her mother, right? Like, this could be detected as possibly being something harmful. It wouldn't be, but it could be because there's a naked child.
Yeah.
So mistakes could be made with this. Hence the reason Apple also does the visual verification before passing on any data about your uploaded iCloud images. Same reason the child would have the ability to bypass, and if they're under 13, they notify the parent so the parent can take a look and see what's going on, right? But this is different from the iCloud photos thing because, again, this applies only in the specific circumstances of your child being a part of an iCloud family, being under a certain age, and the parent/guardian or family creator have turned this feature on.
Right.
Now, let's get to some of the conversations, some of the concerns some people have about this feature. And I'm a little bit more ambivalent about this feature, but also feel like as a parent, like you should be aware of what your children are doing. Like that's, I'm not trying to take any shots at anybody, but I have a lot of friends, including Michael, who have children around. Michael's happens to be his brothers, but that's not the point. He still treats them like children. He takes care of them like he should as a parent. I told him that one day. Like, dude, you're a very good parent for them to be your brother.
Right.
But he's aware of what's going on with them. They talk. They have conversations. He does not allow the devices that are around their house to have raised his brothers. I don't allow the devices my kids have to raise their kids. All the people I know are fairly decent parents. We are aware of what our kids are doing. And when we find out they're doing something we don't want them doing, we put a stop to that shit. That's how you handle that.
Pretty damn quick.
Pretty damn quick. But some of the concerns that people have, and so there's one argument, the EFF, which is an organization I should donate to as a nonprofit. The EFF does a lot of good work. They sometimes completely overreact and blow a gasket about something. I'm like, I don't understand what the problem is. They're blowing a gasket about this. Their reasoning being that Apple has broken end-to-end encryption. Maybe they didn't actually say that. Someone repeated them saying that. And I've heard a lot of other people actually say that. Like, they're breaking end-to-end encryption. They're not. The reason they're not yanking the image out of the air. It gets decrypted. So end-to-end encryption, just a quick explainer for people, because you probably hear this term a lot, may not really grasp fully how it works. I type a message into iMessage. It's not encrypted because I'm typing it on my device. When I hit send, it gets encrypted, and then it goes to Michael. When it arrives on Michael's phone, it gets decrypted. Otherwise, Mike couldn't read it. Mm-hmm. It's only encrypted, meaning it's gibberish letters nobody can read, between the time that it leaves my phone and arrives at Michael's. So if I receive an image, Apple doesn't scan the image on device, until it gets to my device and is decrypted. Or if I'm trying to send an image, or a child is trying to send an image, that, it gets scanned before it's sent, still on device before it was encrypted. So they have not broken end-to-end encryption. Now, the reason they're saying they've broken end-to-end encryption, or they're tampering with it or whatever, is because if the child sends or receives the image and they're under that age where the parent or guardian gets notified, well, they're like, you're telling what you're breaking the encryption because you're putting the parent into the conversation. No, the message was already decrypted. The parent gets notified that, hey, your child did this thing, right? They viewed this image, or they sent this image that we detected to be something harmful. Yep. And the parent has the opportunity to view said image. I honestly, and I do apologize to everybody listening, because I don't know how the parent gets to view the image. Like, do they get it sent to them, or do they have to go get it from the child's device? But even if the image is passed over to the parent in a message, well, it's no different than the child forwarding the message to the parent. It's just Apple is making that happen automatically, but it's still not breaking the encryption. And I'm fairly certain that when the message goes from the kid's device over to the parent, that it's encrypted until it gets there.
Right.
So they're not breaking end-to-end encryption. They are adding someone else to the conversation that should not be there. But here's the point that I want to make. And I don't care if you don't agree with me. You don't have to. I'm a parent. I have 2 children. I have nieces and nephews too. Mm-hmm. But I'm a parent. I have the right to walk in my son's room right now, pick up his iPad, unlock it, and browse his device. You want to know why? Because he's a fucking minor and I'm his fucking parent, and I paid for it. If he's 19 years old and living in my house, maybe we have a different conversation. But as long as you're a kid, there's nothing stopping me from going through your shit.
Nope.
Point blank, period.
And
now,
if you change
I'm not
that
the type
password,
of parent.
we have something to talk about.
Yeah, they can't change their password because you're too young.
Yeah.
Now, once they get to the age where like Michael's kids in his house are, well, then, things are handled a little differently. Like, do I have the right, or do I feel like I have the right? Yes, to go through your shit if I feel like it. But you're of an age where you're a reasoning person and we can have conversations about stuff.
Yeah.
So again, I don't feel like there's a problem. Now, I do understand some legitimate concerns, and I will, go over those. I'm not going to, be as cantankerous about those. So not all parents are like us. I get that. And this could potentially put, a teenager, because we're in these particular cases, like let's say you have a teenager who is uncertain of their gender, or feel that their gender is different, or their sexual orientation is different from that of what their parents are comfortable with. And their parents are not nice, reasonable people who would try to, support their child regardless of their, sexual orientation or gender identification. And they are, let's say doing what teenagers do. Because let's be honest, I did some shit as a teenager I probably shouldn't have done it. My mother would have killed me. I should have known about it.
Yeah.
But let's say that stuff is going on, and then the parent finds out about this, and then that creates a much worse living situation for that child. That is horrible. That is terrible. I don't have anything to say about that other than this, which is, number one, most kids, when they're going through that, first of all, if you're under the age of 13 and you're having these problems and you can't talk to your parents, like, I'm sorry, like, I really can't do anything about that. I can't you can't not protect people because there are also shitty people in the world. Like that doesn't, the math on that doesn't make sense. That's not logical to me. For kids over the age of 13, their parents are not getting notified that they did a damn thing. So, no big deal there. If you're 12 and going, and I really don't mean to be crude when I'm saying this, so please take this in the way that it's meant and not the way that it possibly comes out. If you're 11, 12 years old like that, you're under the age, whereas, if you're sending images around like that and your parents are going to get notified, and you are going through a gender identity situation, or you're figuring out your sexual orientation, I don't mean to be crude, but you're slightly too young to be dealing with any of that by yourself anyway. If you're having to deal with that by yourself at that age, like, there are much bigger problems than your parents finding out that you sent a naked picture. And again, I do truly empathize with kids that grow up in terrible households. Like, I understand that, but we can't not attempt to protect children from the maliciousness that exists in the world.
Yes.
Just because some parents aren't kind to their children. They're still going to be mean and nasty or whatever they are to their children, whether this exists or does not exist. Also, think about the spam messages that I think about the spam messages I get as a now, my kids have iPads with no phone numbers that people can send stuff to, but in a few years that may be a watch, or that may be a phone. Like, once a phone number is out there in the world, there's nothing stopping people from sending that phone a message. Right? Think about that. What would a predator do to a kid? As bad as the situation could get for an actual child in a household, there are some true I personally have seen some of the worst shit that human beings can do to each other in my life. There is not much worse than some of the shit that I've seen. If there's anything worse than some of the things that I've seen, I really don't. I don't think my brain could handle it. There are some dirty, nasty, predatory people out here in the world. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that we should not attempt. Now, should Apple have conversations and people try to come to a understanding or whatever? Yes, but that.
It has to start somewhere, and
right.
And I think we go back to the beginning of this conversation. Maybe Apple shouldn't have announced all of this at once, like that.
Nope.
Not at all. But this has to, I'm surprised it's taken this long for something like this to happen, because it's very important, and children, we as parents can do everything we can to keep children safe, but at some point they're going to go off on their own. And I think that having this extra level of security or comfort's the word I'm looking for, this extra level of comfort, so you know what else is going on, because Damashe works, I work, you listen to podcasts, or you work, so you can't be hovering over your child 24/7, and nor should you be. But this just gives an extra opportunity, I think, to help start some serious conversations with you and your kids, I think, and hopefully it never comes down to it. But I also agree. I am glad that this feature is here. I hope to never have it used on Nicholas, because right now he would be the only one that I would get alerted of a message to. So I hope to never have to experience that alert, because then that is a very uncomfortable situation that he should not have to ever be in. So,
right. And if it, does happen, like you, I'd hope it never happens with my kids. But if it does happen, for me, that's a time for a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. To discuss whatever it was that happened and why this is dangerous. Right. And we have these conversations with our kids all the time. Like, don't do that because that's dangerous. Or if you do that, this could hurt you. Like, so that's, again, I feel like, it's like saying, I don't know. I understand why some people are upset. Another thing I've heard that people are concerned about, well, what if you have a over controlling, spouse or a significant other that you're in a relationship with as an adult, and they go set up an Apple family account and they put you in as a child and yada, yada, yada. And you don't know that they did any of these things. And now they're able to more, deeply spy on you. Here's the thing. If someone were going to do that, they've already done it. Most likely. And even with none of the messaging feature not existing at all, they still could do this and still have more control over your device and what you're doing than, an average family account adult would have over another adult. Like, that's just the way that works. I mean, technically speaking, and again, I'm not, blowing off anybody's concern, because I know that they're very, very, very nasty people in the world, just in general. Sometimes I reflect upon some of what I know about, the evil that humans can do to other human beings. And I look at an asshole like our 45th president, like, man, it's a good thing he wasn't smarter than what he was. But at the same time, he wasn't as terrible as a person as some other people walking around free. But I kind of forgot the point. Every time I think about it, I forget the point I was going to make.
Setting up a child account for a spouse.
If you set up a child, oh no, so I know where I was. Technically speaking, you could use Find if you have a family account set up. You could use Find My to spy on your spouse, like see where they are. Like, you can totally do that. I mean, occasionally I pull my phone out and open up Find My, see where T is. Like, I'm not stalking her or nothing like that. It's just like, should I call her or not call her to tell her to do this thing? Oh no, I see where she is. She already left the Walmart. Never mind. Yep. So, I mean, anything can be look, it's just like a weapon. Like, it's just like a hammer. Like, somebody used this example, and I found it a little humorous, but also very apt. Apple is trying to provide tools to help protect children. I get it. I understand it. And I think it's something that's needed. Adjustments can be made, etc. But a hammer is just a tool to drive nails. A hammer can also be used to kill somebody.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they should stop selling hammers.
And on that morbid note,
oh man,
this is, I think, probably one of our more serious episodes.
It is. And I really didn't mean to take it like down the path of such seriousness, but I really did want to take the opportunity, not because everybody else is talking about it, but because a lot of people are talking about it and misunderstanding what's happening. I mean, I had a very long conversation. The reason what made me want to actually discuss this is I've had 2 or 3 different conversations this week with friends of mine who didn't understand, what was happening. Like they weren't super upset and like, oh man, I'm rage quitting iCloud photos, or, because you believe Apple is breaking my encryption on my messages. Like, it wasn't that visceral of a react, but they really didn't understand what was going on. And, at least 2 of them it was 3 people. So at least 2 of them are fairly technical. They understand how to use devices and how stuff goes and all of that. Like, they're not, just like, oh, you say encryption and their eyes glaze over. Like, they get some of this and how it works, or at least have a low, higher level understanding of it. But they really didn't understand what was going on. But it's all around the reporting that is happening. Like, look, Craig Federighi said that maybe they should not have announced all this stuff at one time. I agree with that statement. I said it before he did, so he stole it from me. But they should not have done it in that way necessarily. They should have broken this up and did a more thorough explanation of each individual thing on its own. But also, I lay a large portion of the blame at the feet of the reporters who were chasing clicks. Yep. Now, I understand it's not necessarily their fault because that's the business they're in, and this is what the industry has done to them. But whenever, one thing I can say, no, I can't say that. I still lay at the feet of the bloggers, the reporters who are, more focused on getting the clicks than they are and actually disseminating good information. Yes. If you don't understand the thing, shut your fucking mouth till you do.
And if you have questions about something that we talked about, you can reach out to Damashe
on Twitter.
Answer your questions.
Damashe. And he's on Twitter at Payon, Payown. And one final request for people. One, let us know what you thought about this episode. And tweet at me, because I really do need to start time tracking. So that means I need to start time tracking everything. I didn't time track this episode, by the way. So that means I'm already off to a terrible start. But if you're at all interested in checking in to see how I'm doing with the time tracking, tweet at me. I'm going to put Twitter on my phone so I will get notifications.
97 minutes, because we started at 8:01, so 96 minutes. And that includes our Discord testing too.
So, you can mention me and be like, hey man, how's your time tracking going? Are you tracking your time? What are you doing? And I will reply. And probably, be like, oh shit, I forgot to start a timer.
Let me go start a toggle so I can track time of me replying to you.
Or, hey, I'm doing great, thanks. So appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed.
Maybe I'll put a click to tweet link on the show notes that will automatically tweet Damashe and say, hey, deal. How's your time tracking going?
Good deal. And Michael knows I wouldn't normally invite people to just randomly tweet me bullshit about what's going on, but I do invite you to, tweet at me, and Michael can put this click to tweet link in at yourownpay.com/DM76, and you can tweet at me like, hey, how's the time tracking going? Right. Just click the link. Michael put the message in. All you got to do is click the link and hit send. And we'll get there. Thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate it. Hope we didn't get too serious, but I felt like this was something that needed to be discussed. Me and Michael did not discuss this beforehand, by the way, other than me asking him, was he, did he want to talk about the subject? But that was it. Like, we didn't share any thoughts or opinions. So I'm not surprised, but we share the same viewpoints about this. I'm not surprised by that, but I also did not know this. So like, this could have turned into a whole different.
Yes, it could have. But yeah, we will be back in a couple of weeks ish, maybe, or sooner on Discord.
You never know.
That no one has access.
And hey, if you are interested, I think I stepped on you.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just saying that no one else has access to except Ben.
So Ben is our longest running supporter now. But also, you can follow the show on Twitter at the DM series, and tweet at us or tweet at the DM series, and let us know if you are interested in listening to a live stream at all. And if you are, let us know and go over to yourownpay.com/support and make a small contribution. And hey, that's the first perk that we're offering. We told you there would probably be perks
we just didn't.
if you were a supporter. here's a perk that you can possibly get. I will warn you, we recorded 11. We start recording at 11 Eastern at night. So be aware of that if you want to live stream.
Yeah,
we ain't moving the time. This time is working great.
It is.
Hey, man, people be up. And look, it is like going into the afternoon in Australia. So, hey,
there we
wherever
go.
you happen to be.
Yeah, maybe it'll just be our international listeners.
Hey, that'll be nice.
Yeah, get to know them. And that's enough rambling for this outro. We'll cue the music and get into it. See you guys next time. DM show at yourownpay.com/DM76.
You've been listening to Your Own Pay Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, visit yourownpay.com/cast for exclusive content and to contact us today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and about how you're making this podcast your own. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. The Your Own Pay Podcast, yourownpay.com.